We also always like to highlight a video from our archives every month, usually one that has some kind of thematic connection to our most recent session. So since Silvia is going to be talking about assessment, authentic evaluation, we want to highlight the talk Crafting Criteria That Count, Developing Meaningful Rubrics for EFL Classrooms. And this was a PD talk back in July of 2024 by Cindy Rodriguez. And it's a really cool talk. And she's got lots of great ideas about how to make your rubrics, number one, work for you. They need to measure what you want them to measure, but also that they work for students and they support students' learning. They're not just a grade or a number for students. So she's got a lot of ideas there. And I think these two sessions are going to complement each other very well. All right, well, that's enough from me. I want to go ahead and tell you more about our speaker and then turn it over to her because I know she has a lot of things prepared for you. All right, so please help me welcome Silvia Guillén Araya. She is an English teacher and she's also a college and career counselor and an educational innovation specialist with over 14 years of experience shaping learning environments in Costa Rica and beyond. She's dedicated a big part of her career path to studying how theory, project-based learning, and creativity can move from abstract frameworks into realistic day-to-day classroom practices. She's passionate about empowering both students and teachers, and she designs trainings and workshops and projects that foster collaboration, innovation, and professional growth. Inspired by her visits to high schools and universities across the Americas, she brings global insights into local contexts, guiding students in their academic and career journeys, while equipping educators with forward-thinking strategies that transform classrooms into spaces of meaningful learning. And she's here to speak with us today with PD Talk number 82, Beyond Theory, Practical Approaches to Authentic Evaluation. So please help me welcome Silvia Guillén with a warm round of applause. If you have your cameras on, why don't you give Silvia a big thumbs up or those virtual emojis or say a nice message in the chat. So Silvia, all yours.
Hi, well, thank you. Thank you for such warm welcome. I am very, very excited to be here. One of the things that I love the most is teaching. I really love teaching. I think my teaching practice has evolved throughout the years. And I must say, it's not because Mark is here, but Mark played a huge role into my professional development. I had the incredible opportunity of working in Centro Cultural a few years ago. And I can honestly say that I had a growth sprout when I was there in my English teaching practice because lots of things that Mark taught me back then. So thank you, Mark, because I really, really cherish that. I want to share with you something very interesting. I have been working at the same school for about 13 years, and the school has gone through a transformation. We used to be a school that was very, very academic. We were heavy on academic, heavy on math, heavy in language arts, but very dense. And then a change of administration came, and someone with great knowledge of educational trends and how education was transforming itself brought us something, brought us a challenge, and that was to innovate and to stop doing such academic memoristics, traditional stuff, and moving forward, um, project-based learning, active methodologies, thinking strategies, thinking routines. And it was hard. It was so hard. We had no idea how to do it. And he explained it so effortlessly. And we were all like mesmerized and excited and motivated. But when we went into the class, we were like, okay, like, how do we do everything that he just said? And it was that awkward transition in which we wanted to change and we wanted to upgrade our teaching practices, but sometimes we have this idea in our heads that in order to be effective and authentic in our evaluation, we have to do so much, and that, we have to go above and beyond. And it's actually simple. So, my premise is go back to square one. Let's go step by step, and let's go back to basics. So, what we are going to talk today is simple. Probably everything that I'm going to say, probably you already know it, but we are going to discuss it and break it down into simpler steps, I think. So, let me share my screen with the presentation so we can dive into it. Um, so, yeah, we are going to talk about practical approaches to authentic evaluation, and I want to start by reflecting and by can you see my screen? Just checking. Yes,
Yes.
perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Um, so, I just want to start by reflecting that we are constantly evaluating. We evaluate everything. When we go on a date and we see the other person, we are evaluating, we are assessing. Oh, do I feel okay? Is the vibe, flowing? Are there cues that I don't like, or things that I like, things that make me feel comfortable? We always evaluate the weather before we go out, before we leave the house, to see what we wear, what should we pack. um, at the gym, we are evaluating if we can go up or we should go down into the weights that we are lifting. So we are constantly evaluating. As humans, we are always observing and making decisions based upon the things that we observe, the things that we pick up from our environment. So we are always evaluating. And there is this book that is called Inside the Black Box, in which it is said that every teacher is above all an evaluator. So I really want to pick up on the fact that when we are at school, the spotlight of what we evaluate is upon the students. We are constantly looking at our students. How do they come at school in the morning? Oh, this student is looking sad, probably something happened at home, or this one is a little bit aggressive in the playground. Maybe something's happening, or this has the characteristics of a leader, or today, well, they have an oral presentation and they look nervous, or when we are teaching a specific subject and we pick up on their faces and we're like, okay, no, I should reteach this, or I should teach this differently because they're not comprehending what I'm trying to say. So at school, we are always evaluating as students, and evaluating doesn't mean that we are doing tests or like running evaluations on them. It's just like we are observing constantly at recess when we are talking to them, informally or formally. We are always picking up um, details and things that we see from them in order to make conclusions. So I really want to ask you, maybe voluntarily, or if you want to write it in the chat, what is evaluation for you? Like when you think about, or when you listen to the word evaluation, what do you think evaluation is? I don't know if can they open their mic?
Yeah, they
If
should
so,
be able to. Let me just make sure that's possible. One second here. The settings might need adjusting. Yes, now it's possible, guys, if you have something
okay,
to
if
say.
yeah, if someone wants to share, what do you think evaluation is, or what comes through your mind when you hear the word? Okay, so I see a way to assess progress. Mhm. Evaluation is assessing students in two directions, formative or summative. Yes, that's right. I think it's checking your achievements. Very good. Find evidence. of our students' progress and improve ourselves, a tracking process, very good. Giving constructive feedback, find a way to improve one's job, checking on progress to redirect your approach. Awesome. Yeah. So we can all agree that um, it's a way to check on progress. You know, it's a process of checking on progress. Very good. All right, so this is what some academics say that authentic evaluation is. So Benjamin Bloom said evaluation is the systematic process of determining the extent to which the educational objectives are achieved. Then Robert Stake said evaluation is a process of describing, collecting, and providing information useful for judging decision alternatives. And then my favorite concept is by Jean Piaget in the constructivist perspective. He said that evaluation must be an active process where the learner demonstrates the construction and organization of knowledge rather than the memorization of facts. And I really like this concept because when I think about my personal experience and my evolution as a teacher, I think that I definitely changed my mindset into this, like going from very traditional assessment to authentic assessment. So I think this concept really summarize what authentic assessment actually is. So I also want to ask you, in your schools, like where you currently work, how do evaluations look like? So when you say, okay, I'm going to evaluate this student, like what is the approach or what is the method that you use in your schools to evaluate your students?
Again, feel free
What
to
do you,
open your microphones if you want to say something. Sorry, Sylvia.
yeah, don't worry. I want to hear your voices. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. That's a good quote. Yes, you're right.
Well, so you hear at least one voice. I can tell you a little bit about what the evaluations look like at Centro Cultural. We have
Yeah.
a written exam,
Mm-hmm.
midterm and final for every level of our program. And then we also have an oral assessment that is done in pairs, where students have
Mm-hmm.
to do they have to have a conversation and carry out almost like a role play or a conversation that's contextualized to a situation that's designed to have them produce some of the language that we've been studying with them. So that,
Mm-hmm.
at least when it comes to um, summative assessment.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. All right. So in the chat, do some of you wants to share? I evaluate students' progress every class and also at the end of each unit. Give respectful feedback to make them feel more confident. Great. Observation and students' reaction during lessons. Aha, very good. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, what we can say about evaluation and from your take on what evaluation is and from the examples that I just shared, the three concepts that I just shared, what they have in common is that evaluation is a process. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Evaluation is a process. Is it is not an isolated um, element or an isolated moment. It's a continuum. So that is actually what authentic evaluation is the collection, is a system of collecting information about the student's learning and its progress, considering both the final product and the learning process. And this, I like to use this metaphor of the picture versus the film, because in traditional evaluation, um, evaluation is seen as the picture, the final thing, and it's static and you cannot change it. And, it's a number most of the times. But with authentic evaluation, it's a continuum. It's a collection of data, of information that allows you to adapt it to whatever the student's needs are, to provide feedback more efficiently, because you actually have this bundle of information that you can share with the students, with the family, in order to make the learning process authentic and even more reliable. So you are the filmmaker. You are the director, you are the teacher, but you are not in the leading role. That's an important thing. In authentic evaluation, the student is at the center of the process. Like, he's in the spotlight. And what you do is collecting all the data that you can see. So in traditional evaluation, what we assess is how much the students know. And generally, we use the scale from 0 to 100 or from 1 to 10, right? So, how much you know about that. And generally, is something, as I said previously, is isolated, right? With authentic evaluation, I'm sorry, there's a big truck going by. In authentic evaluation, on the contrary, what we focus on is, what do the students know? What do they know? And what are they able to do with what they know? What can they build? How can they interact? What can they design with what they know? Because we have plenty of examples of people that know a lot of stuff, that are very smart, very intelligent, have been in privileged and Ivy Leagues and stuff, and they don't know how to do anything with what they know. I'm not talking about politics today, but we have lots of examples of people that have a lot of information and knowledge, but are not able to translate that into tangible action. All right. So that's the main difference between traditional and authentic evaluation. Now, on the same page, authentic evaluation strengthens the four pillars of education, especially the last two. So the four pillars, sorry, the four pillars of education are learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to live together. The last two are the most important, because the final objective of education must be that our students develop this sense of purpose, of identity, that they strengthen their identity with what they now know, with what they now know that they can do with what they know. Okay. And ultimately, we live in community, right? We are social beings. So if what our students know allows them and enables them to live in society and to participate and to collaborate with others, then ultimately the ultimate objective of education has been achieved, right? Because we have been helping students to develop into productive, sensitive, social beings. But now the question is, how do we do it? How do we do it? Because this all sounds very nice, but sometimes, like it happened to me, we don't know how to do that and how to translate that into our teaching practices? And the answer is in your didactic sequence, aka your planning. Okay, because planning, um, sorry, there's recipe to authentic evaluation, and this recipe is what you can incorporate into your planning in order to ensure, in order to take steps into authentic evaluation. So the recipe is methods mixed in context. Okay, so methods placed into context. So, what are the methods? Methods are the syllabus, this document where we explain everything that we are going to do throughout the year with our students, the contents, the timings, the type of projects that we are going to develop. Some people call it, if you are in a more in other types of institutions, you call it the chronogram. Okay, so the course chronogram, or the course the chronogram. So the methods include this syllabus or the chronogram, your didactic sequence, so your planning, thinking routines, graphic organizers, how you attend to different multiple strategies. So, which ones are your learning strategies, classroom observations, formal and informal assessments, even if they are summative or formative, um, continuous training that also takes part into authentic evaluation. If you take trainings like this one, or if your school allows you to go into trainings with the whole staff, that all adds up into the mix. And you have to place all these things and all the data and all the information that you have from your methods into contexts. Okay, so what are the contexts? The contexts are the situations, the setting, the environments that you create for your students. Okay, in authentic evaluation, a requirement is that you try to make these contexts meaningful. How do you make them meaningful? They have to be relatable for the students. You are not going to teach history, for example, putting examples of something that happened a long time ago, and students have no idea or they cannot relate to it. Like, you need to adapt, even if it is something that you're studying as a historical event. You need to adapt the information to things that are relatable, meaningful, for your students, things that they can connect with their day-to-day life into real contexts. They can be realistic or they can be fictional, especially if you are working with PBL, with project based learning or problem based learning or inquiry based learning, whatever the based learning you use is. You can create fictional contexts for them, always making sure that the elements are relatable for the students. And what's better if you can include some real life challenges for them. If you practice CBL, challenge based learning, and students have to solve real problems that they have either at school or in their communities, is like, how do you make these connections to reality, right, through your teaching? And something that is very, very important in authentic evaluation, try to include competency. Okay, so if they need to, I don't know, learn or use skills like time management, self-regulation, learning how to work in teams, learning how to respect roles, or if they have, or if you use roles when you do collaborative work. So all of that is very, very important. So there's this myth that in order to be assessing authentically, you have to just go above and beyond and turn yourself upside down and do these crazy things and crazy projects that last months. That's not, number one, that's not realistic. That's not sustainable, that's not something that you can do all the time. We have timelines, we have deadlines, we have a bunch of stuff that we have to make sure that we comply. So how do we do this without, just doing and doing and doing and doing things that at the end of the day is not going to be so enriching or not so efficient? We have to go back to square one, go step by step, because planning is the bridge between theory and evaluation. And I really want to make sure that this is clear when the title of this PD talk is Beyond Theory, not because theory is not important. Theory is the most important thing. Like, you need to know your stuff. We as teachers are academics, so we need to know our stuff. The theory is the base. What we need to know is that the planning, the didactic sequence that we develop, that we design for our students, is the link, is what connects what we know as professionals to where we want to take our students in order to help them achieve all of those objectives. I see some comments. You're right, because assessment should help them keep learning, of course. The learning route, yes, the last two pillars are more enriching. That's right. And something that I can take from the last comment um, is authentic evaluation doesn't focus on what you cannot do on or on what you do not achieve. Authentic evaluation is communicated from a more positive approach. You have to say to the student, okay, you are able to do this, so you are here. You do not say to them, like, you don't, the student is not able, or the student doesn't, or the student couldn't. No, you always speak from, this is where you are, in a positive approach, in a positive outlook. Okay, because that always gives the students the sense of accomplishment, and that from there up. Okay, so didactic sequence, the quality of teaching depends to a great extent on the quality of planning. And sometimes, nowadays I don't teach as much as I used to. My teaching hours have dropped a little bit, but I love planning. I love to sit down and plan the activities and open the book, and just, I think you can see your planning as an outlet for your creativity, right, Mark? Planning is fun. Planning could be fun. Let's make a planning club. um, Planning can be so much fun because you can actually apply everything that be creative. Sometimes teachers have a lot of things on their plate, timings, and we have a lot of stuff going on. So let's make it simple, okay? Let's not over complicate, or sometimes we really need to get to know our group, get to know the group, get to know your students. How are they? How do they behave? How are they interacting with each other? How do they get along with you? What's the energy with the teacher? Okay, so sometimes before planning, you should really make an assessment, an evaluation, read the room, and try to be realistic. Let's try to be realistic when we plan. And also, let's learn how to use our planning on our behalf, on the teacher's behalf. I remember that I used to love making projects, and I made these long, beautiful, elaborated projects. But then when it was time for checking, I was like, oh, what did I do? I have so much paperwork to do and comments to write and rubrics to fill in. So, we not only have to think about the students reaching their objectives, but also when we plan, when we elaborate our didactic sequence, we have to also think about ourselves. The class should also be something that excites us to teach, right? So I think that that is something very, very important. Your didactic sequence um, have to excite you as well, not only your students. So I am going to focus on 8 elements that you can include in your didactic sequence in order to maximize your chances to practice authentic evaluation. Okay? So, like I said at the beginning, these are things that you already know. Okay? I am sure that you already know them. But we are going to go over them because this really are 8 cornerstones for authentic evaluation. I am going to read some of the comments just to see. Um, Process based writing. I agree. Okay, I already read that. Um, Many times we need to compensate for the learner's negative self talk. That's right. That's right. Sometimes students have very low self esteem. No, no, I can't. And they are very sometimes strong headed, right? I plan because I have to. I cannot say that I enjoy it, but I like to see the products they create with my scaffolded activities. Yeah, some people don't like it, and that's good. I agree. Our plan has to be feasible for us in terms of workload. Yes, very important. The didactic units take time, however, they are fun to write. Once we have better understanding of the group chemistry, we have a clear picture of what we must of of the most successful kind of activities to reach our under goal. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Getting to know your students is basic. It's the most important thing because sometimes you also, when you assess your group and when you evaluate your group, you can also determine, okay, I have more visual learners, or no, they are more kinesthetic and they like to move around a lot more, or no, they are not so good at writing, so I should probably start working on that and maybe thinking about activities that can enhance maybe the things that they need to work on. So, the number one element, expectation. This is the most important thing. This is the most important thing. Emotion. Emotion. Generate emotion in the class. There is this book about Jean Piaget, and he says that um, emotion, like letter, the knowledge and blood don't come together. What he tries to say is that uh, giving the students a hard time is not going to work. You have to get them excited. You have to make them curious about what they are about to learn. So now we know that motivation, like through pedagogy and neuroscience, we know that motivation and excitement are key to activate the processes of attention, memory, and meaningful learning. um, According to him, according to Piaget, when there is this cognitive disequilibrium, we push the students to search for understanding. Uh-huh. Yes, exactly. La letra con sangre no entra. That's right. Um, so yeah, according to him, this cognitive impairment or disequilibrium, what generates is curiosity. What is the teacher talking about? What is this? What is this? What's going on in the class today? So it makes them uh, curious and want to learn even more. So, what are some strategies that you can use to hook your students from the start of the class? Well, we all know. the provocative dilemma or provocative question, maybe something that sparks a little bit of a challenge for them, that makes them think about the box. For example, what would happen if money disappeared? And it doesn't have to be something when you are starting like to warm up your students, it doesn't have to be necessarily related or obviously related to the topic. You can just spark curiosity and getting them warm up for what would come next. Maybe a powerful story or an anecdote about someone, make helping them make an emotional connection. Storytelling is wonderful for that. Storytelling is wonderful um, for everything. Mystery object or surprise box, maybe show an object related to the topic. Also, I don't know if anyone of you teaches something in the IB, but there's this subject called TOK, theory of knowledge, and they used a lot of objects to generate knowledge and to make students question themselves and what they already know. So you can put just an object in the center of the class and see what might come up from watching it or touching it, or students experiencing it. Short or inspiring videos, that's very very common. Powerful quote or meaningful meme, students love memes and stickers. You can use that to generate conversation. A quick game or a mini challenge. What would you do if? Thematic music, so play a song in the background, make students close their eyes, imagine a scenario. Mind map or collaborative work cloud. If in your classes you are allowed to use technology, there are a bunch of tools that you can use, maybe a trailer or a spoiler about something, about a show, about a movie that is related to the topic that you are going to study. So the main goal of education is to create individuals who are capable of doing new stuff, not simply repeating what other generations have done. I love Piaget so much. Then element number 2, exposure to contents. How do you expose your students to something new? It has to be meaningful. You have to make sure that you activate the students' background knowledge. What do our students already know? You have to try to always make an association, because otherwise it's going to be very hard for them to connect or to generate a connection with what you're trying to teach. So it's very important to try to look for something that for them is relevant or has some sort of familiarity in order to them to acquire or comprehend even better. And I really like this because um, Housel says that meaningful learning is the combination of previous knowledge and exposure to new concepts. And that is really the equation for deep understanding and long-term retention. It's very hard when topics are very abstract and they have nothing to hold it on to, to link it to. So that makes it even more challenging for them to comprehend. So some strategies, to facilitate the understanding of new content. First, activation of prior knowledge. That's the most basic one. So what do you know about this? Or what do you remember that in the last class we saw, I don't know, or last year, break down the topic and pick up one element that you think the students can relate to in order to create that cognitive anchor. Okay, that's very very important. Also use graphic organizers. I'm a big fan of graphic organizers and visual thinking in general. Present diagrams, infographics, analogies. I don't know, ask them to make a picture, to create a song. I don't know. Try to make the students' thinking visible. That in that way you can really get to know how much and what do they know about a topic. Sometimes they can surprise you and they know more than you think of. Use analogies and metaphors, chunking and sequencing content. That's very important as well because it allows the brain to gradually integrate new information. Emotional connections to real life examples, so maybe stories, real life situations. Maybe you can take someone to class to speak about a topic, or maybe you can, I don't know, take a professional to give them a speech or a presentation about something. um, so I really like this quote. If I had to reduce all of the educational psychology to just one principle, I would say this: the most important single factor influencing learning is what the learner already knows. Ascertain this and teach accordingly is always to know what's the starting point. How much do they actually know? um, it definitely makes everything so much easier when you can connect new knowledge to their background. um, in the number three, we have the three cornerstones of planning. The three cornerstones of planning. Someone over there wrote, I really like to see what they produce from my scaffolded activities. So scaffolding is very, very important, is the way of helping a child learn, providing structured support, and then gradually removing it as the child becomes more competent. This is very important. We need to try to support the student as much as we can at the beginning, but then gradually we take them off those aids or those learning tools that we provide. It's like when people, I don't know, break a leg, they're not going to go on clutches, forever. That's something that supported them and helped them. But the intention is that they develop these abilities and knowledge that they can take on the rest on their own. So, scaffolding, when you plan, think about going from more to less. Okay. Then the cognitive load. A teacher's challenge is to design learning experiences that lead students to reach their fullest potential, taking into account their current cognitive ability. Oh my God, this is so important because sometimes teachers take pride on being, I'm so hard. My classes are so hard and my students struggle so much. If you think that you are so wrong, there's something wrong with you. You should not enjoy students suffering. You need to be really aware. You need to be really aware. What's the student's current cognitive ability? What's their maximum capacity right now? And where can you take them? With scaffolding, with your support, where can you take them next? Okay? Because we learn little and lose much when we stay in our comfort zone. That's also something that happens, we are too afraid. And lately it's difficult. These generations of kids are different, but we need to push them also. So we need to find the sweet spot. What's the sweet spot? Optimal challenge, yes. What's the optimal challenge for them according to where they are? Where can you take them without generating frustration? That's very, very important. And it also takes part in that stance where you get to know your students, get to know your population. How are they, in what point of their of their learning path are they? And of course, modeling. Okay, modeling is very, very, very important. Bandura has this book on social learning theory, and he says that students learn not only through trial and error, but also by observing competent models who demonstrate how to think, solve problems, and behave. What you say, like what you teach, you have to embody. You have to embody as well. Modeling reduces ambiguity, it strengthens confidence, and it also broadens the cognitive ability of the students. If they see someone doing it, they see that it's possible. Think about the gym, for example. You see someone jumping the box. That makes you, probably, if you see the box on its own, you're going to think that no, that's way too high. It's too difficult. I cannot do it. But once you see someone doing it, you see that it is possible. Okay? So this is very important in order to help the students to reach, uh, to gradually reach their most elevated, their elevated potential. Okay, their maximum potential. So you go first. That's what I always tell teachers. You go first. You do it. You do it first, so students can see how it's done. So students can see that it is possible, and that you are there to teach them how to do it. Okay, don't make them jump themselves into the water if if you can teach them how to do it first. You're right, modeling is great to build students' confidence. I model and make myself be silly so they understand sometimes making mistakes. It's okay. That's very, very good. Let us make a difference between cognitive load and cognitive capacity. Though they look similar, their affordances for students are different. That's right. Mhm. Optimal challenge is the basis for differentiated teaching. Yes, yes. You need to know where your students are. They are not at the same range, even if they are in the same group. One thing I love to do with projects is use some of the ones from students of the previous course as models. Yes, that's very important. Give them something to look up to as an example. Okay, and also let them know that they can do differently, right? Sometimes, especially with these generations, again, sometimes you say, okay, this is free, you can do whatever, and they're like, no, but how do I do it? No, tell me. So it's also finding that sweet spot between giving an example and also giving them the freedom to be themselves and be creative and explore on their own as well. Number four, assessment activities. If we don't know what our students are thinking, we can't teach them well. So checking understanding is very, very important. It's very important because it allows us to adjust instruction to see what do I need to reteach, how, like, what's next, what do my students need. Okay, I'm not against traditional testing. I support tests. I think tests to some extent are necessary, yes, but also we need to combine them with non traditional assessment, open ended questions, short exercises, thinking routines, guided discussions, things that have not only one answer is very important. Nowadays, as a college counselor, I can tell you that companies not only look for hard knowledge, but also like, how can you solve problems? How can you be creative? What can you give us? So if we only assess our students with simple choice questions, we are not preparing them for life, or at least not for how society is nowadays. So we really need to think, how can I prepare my students for what they are going to face in their future. So, yeah, there are lots of things that require testing, standardized testing. Yes, even, to get your driver's license, you do a, you have to do a test. Um, but also try to think outside the box, make them uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to make your students uncomfortable, and ask and ask and ask, just as when you have a baby that they are like, but what is this, but why, and how does it work. Do the same thing with your students. Go as deep as you can with them in order to make them think. Number five, applied learning tasks. Learning only becomes meaningful when the student is able to use what they know in new contexts. Okay, so um, Benjamin Bloom says that in order to learn, we need to take students to real life context, to real life situations, because it activates complex cognitive functions. um, it strengthens memory, long-term memory. It fosters self-regulation, autonomy, critical thinking, motivation. And also students, this is very important, students see the reason for learning. Sometimes they are like, but what's this gonna do for me? And if, what's algorithms gonna do for me in real life, like math, like why, so when you take them to real life situations, when you really focus on the context, students find a meaning for their learning. Why do I need to learn about World War II if it happened so long ago? Well, make the connections. Try, push yourself as a teacher to make connections with something that they're learning, to how can it be meaningful for them nowadays. Um, okay, these two, 6 and 7, I love them. Feed forward and feedback. We talk a lot about feedback, but sometimes we don't talk much about feed forward. So, feed forward is what you tell the students what's going up, what's coming up next. Okay, so you help them to anticipate what is going to happen, and they can prepare with clarity and purpose. So examples, you have this big project coming up with your students. Read the instructions with them, read the rubric with them. Like Mark was saying, show them previous projects so they can see what is expected of them. That's feed forward. When you tell them, this is happening, this is how you're going to be evaluated, these are my objectives, this is what I expect from you. Not only with projects, you can put a daily objective every day on your board. What's the objective of the day? So students can really adapt and work according to that. Okay, so feed forward is a strategy that reduces so much ambiguity and actually lets students know what's expected of them. And you will see, if you start applying um, feed forward strategies, students will improve. You will reduce significantly the amount of times that you have to explain something, or the amount of times that you have to tell student something. Sometimes applying these strategies really helps you work less in the future. Also, is not only reading the information or sharing the rubric with the students, is okay, the information is here, is not a secret, is not, the rubric is not something that you see at the very end of the project where you have a 5 or a 3 or a 0. No, it's here, the information is here, you can see it, you can read it as much as you need. Okay, so make information available for students. It's no secret. if it's an evaluation that they're going to go through, it has to be right there for them. So feed forward strategies enhance self regulation, planning, and learning projection. Feed forward and feedback is metacognition, okay? Is helping students really get to know, how they learn, and what can do better. And that's where feedback takes us, okay? So feedback is one of the most powerful factors for improving learning, as long as it focuses on how to improve rather than only what you have done wrong. This is very important. Feedback is meant to be constructive. If it's not constructive, it's better if you don't do it. I mean, it needs to be something that allows the student to know what to do next. What can they do in order to improve? It allows the students to understand what they did, how they did it, and how they can do it better. So it builds a bridge between where they are and where you want them to get. Okay, so it's really feedback, it's a ladder. Okay, it really should be like stepping stones, and that lead the student to their maximum capacity, their maximum potential. Number 8, and this is the last one: evaluation. Students need to know that the learning process, it's on them. It's personal and also collective responsibility. And it's very important that students know how to evaluate themselves. Again, this is metacognition, and how to do peer evaluation. So, auto evaluation, self assessment is a powerful tool to help students become self regulated learners. It allows the students to develop awareness, identify strengths, detect areas of improvement, plan concrete actions to move forward, strengthen metacognition, foster critical thinking, reflection, and commitment to their personal growth. And this is very important, especially as students get older. If they know how to assess themselves, if they know how to see inside of them and how they learn, they on their own, they are going to pick up strategies that work for them as they grow older. Because sometimes it happens to me a lot with students that they say, teacher, I used to study, I don't know, repeating over and over the information, but now that is not working with me. And of course it's not. Lots of things change, and students need to evolve also in how they learn, and the best way in which they acquire knowledge. So auto evaluation is very, very useful for that. Co-evaluation, co-assessment is not merely an act of judging others, but an opportunity to learn with and through others. It promotes collaboration, critical thinking, collective commitment to learning, the development of the ability to value others' work, justify one's observations, and receive feedback from multiple perspectives. Co-evaluation is so valuable in teaching, because if your teacher did a feedback session with you and then you have a co-evaluation session with your peers, you are going to be so enriched. You are going to have multiple perspectives on how you did your work and how you can improve. Now, when I used to teach first grade, I love to do auto and co-evaluation with my students. And I remember that we had this palettes with faces, like a happy face, a straight mouth face, and a sad face. So for example, I would ask, how do you feel about this word? Do you understand this word? Do you know how to use it in a sentence? And the kids would show palettes, and they were like, no, I don't understand, or no, I'm having problems with this word. And you can do that through first cycle, first grade, second grade, third grade. You can use little faces, and then you can incorporate questions. Why is this giving you a hard time? Or why do you feel like this? In high school, We have some challenges, of course, especially with the co-evaluation. You need to be really smart and strategic. How do you plan this strategies with your students? Because sometimes they would put 100 to this one because, it's my bestie and I love you. And, but as you model and as you repeat as a parrot the processes and the importance, and as students see that you observe and that you then compare with how are they evaluating themselves, and that you take this seriously as a teacher, they are going to start taking it seriously as well and being more fair in the process. The important thing is that don't give up. Don't give up on the auto evaluation and the self evaluation. At the beginning, is going to be a disaster, because they are enablers and they're going to put 100 to their besties. But then, as time goes, and as you model, and as they see that this is a very important part of the process, they are going to improve and they're going to make it better and better as time goes. All right. So, we have two prompts that we would love for you to discuss in your breakout rooms. Mark is going to give you the instructions for that, I think. But these are the prompts, okay? So I really want for you to talk about what's one evaluation habit you will intentionally implement or upgrade after today. And the other one is, what other assessment related practices do you use in your classes that you could share with your peers?
Excellent. So I think it might be helpful to share the presentation with everybody so that they can refer back to any of these slides, because you've shared so many things with us. And I think it'll be easier for them to answer the first question, if you don't mind. So I'm going to go ahead and share that there in the chat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everybody can click on that link to open the Canva presentation that Sylvia's been sharing from.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've had a chance to open that link, we're going to open the breakout rooms. And again, take advantage of the fact that we have teachers from around Costa Rica and around the world here. So interact with your peers here for the next about 10 minutes or so. Sylvia, does that sound right?
Yeah, that
Okay,
sounds great.
perfect. Wow.
Yeah, just I had some closing remarks, some final thoughts. As a way to summarize everything that we have been talking about. So, number one, authentic evaluation shifts the focus from measuring knowledge to understanding learning. It values the process, which we learned at the beginning or studied at the beginning. That is the most important thing, the process, reflection, and growth. Number two, it challenges teachers to become designers of experiences, not just transmitters of information. You have to design experiences, put your methods into contexts. Every day, question or product becomes an opportunity to connect learning with life, creativity, and personal purpose. And number three, and last, ultimately, authentic evaluation empowers students to take ownership of their learning journey through feed forward, feedback, co-evaluation, auto-evaluation, to reflect, make choices, and act intentionally, turning assessment into a bridge between who they are and who they want to become. Remember the last two pillars of education: learning to be and learning to live together. And yeah, we are very eager to hear your comments on everything that we have talked about.
All right, so you should be able to unmute yourself if you have a question for Sylvia, or if you have a comment, or if you'd like to share something that you were talking about in the breakout room with your peers just now related to anything from today's presentation. So you're welcome to open your microphone, or you can write those questions and comments here in the chat.
Yeah.
Well, while we wait for that, I just wanted to say thank you for this, and thank you so much for that last one of those last comments there. Being designers of experiences. I love that. Thinking about,
Mhm.
I'm not a teacher, I am a teacher, but one of the things I'm doing as a teacher is I'm designing experiences for my
Exactly.
students. I really like that, the phrasing of that.
We are designers. We are making connections between the content to, getting our students to do something with that content. Thank you, Carlos, for your cute emojis.
There was someone I think that opened their microphone and I might have interrupted them. So I'm not sure, Horacio, if you were going to say
Mark,
something.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Sylvia, thank you for, this very interesting presentation. And I still, I still remember when I started, evaluating, assessing students, and it was a very traditional way of doing things. But then I understood, key concepts that learners, for example, one key concept is that learners have a voice or should have a voice in the classroom, and that what they do, as a form of assessment can also, go beyond the classrooms and benefit communities. Community-based learning is a concept that I would say it's very important here. And learners should understand that in the past there was only one voice, one source of input, mostly teachers. But now, with technology, a lot of improvement in different areas, they have multiple sources of input, right? And that's something that they should also consider. So again, very interesting presentation. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. And you're totally right. In traditional assessment, the teacher was at the center, and we were on straight lines, and just, it was just the teacher's voice who was heard. Now, authentic evaluations, classrooms are meant to be loud, students' voices are meant to be heard, students' opinions are meant to be considered in the learning process and in the designing of the experiences, because we really want to make them reliable and relatable for them. That was the word that I meant, relatable. So yeah, you're totally right, Horacio. Thank you for your comment.
Sylvia,
I
we had
have
a
a
comment.
question. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Horacio.
Yeah, I
Excuse
have
me.
a question. I'm sorry. And there was somebody in our group who said that time constraints, that's an issue when it comes to assessing learners. And I understand that's true. However, we should do something to, I would say, solve that problem. Because the thing is that uh, this is not helping us to, help our students as well, being assessed properly. Right? For
Mhm.
example, let's say that you're doing a writing, you're teaching a writing course, and then you know that you should definitely, help students go through a process, helping, go through a process, and that it takes time, but that should be part of the planning process as well. Isn't that
Mhm.
true?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And that's also when doing a diagnostic at the beginning comes in handy. And later we can do another session about the importance of diagnosis at the beginning, assessing where your students are at the beginning, because that can help you to set priorities, structure your syllabus for the year. What are the students need? So you really need to assess where the students are in order to tailor your experiences and the designing of your experiences to the students needs. So that really helps. Time will always be a constraint, especially for teachers. Time will always be an issue. The most important thing is that you really need to set your priorities. Think less is more. So quality versus quantity. Sometimes we really dive into these huge heavy plannings. That's not the idea. You don't want to kill the students and yourself later on. So just really prioritize, focus on what's important. And also something that I forgot to mention that is very important, you do not need to have the 8 elements in each class that you have in front of your students. Like these elements, I like to apply them by units. So think of units. Don't think of classes as isolated elements that need to have everything in order to be an authentic evaluation class. Like, don't think that every class doesn't need to have this extensive warm-ups or reflection sessions, because you're not gonna cover the contents that you need and the institution requires. So get to know your population, get to know what the school requires from you, but also just try to do better when it comes to prioritizing quality over quantity. You're very welcome. Everybody in the comments is being so nice. Thank you so much. To the last 3 years, but I still haven't found the balance. What I can read. I don't know, Mark. I think something that I forgot in this presentation, which is very important, is the references
Uh-huh.
from. I took all the concepts. So I don't
Right.
know if we can refresh the link in a
Yeah,
bit.
sure.
So
I think if you update that, the same link should take them to
okay,
your current presentation. I
yeah,
did see some of the references down there. They were very small, but
yeah.
I think people could probably zoom in and find some of that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Javier is saying that
Hmm.
what can he read? Well, there's a bunch of stuff out there that you can read for advice and how to, turn it up a notch in your practice. But my honest advice is don't think you have to do so much. That's the main mistake. Don't think you have to do this overly complicated projects and classes. And no, just less is more. Less is more. And sometimes just take one day at a time, one step at a time, but really focus on your planning, making it simple but meaningful. And yes, I'm going to update the presentation, Javier, so you can have the references for all the books that I used to put this um, presentation together.
Sylvia, before we go to Michael, he has his hand up, but
Yep.
Angie also had a question in the chat, but I think she wrote it directly to me. So I'm going to post it again here for everyone to see. She says this: nowadays we are facing short attention spans from our students, and it's
Yes.
making it harder to, evaluate them. How can we improve that through authentic evaluation?
Mhm. That's right. Attention span is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Um, we have to adapt to that. Also, part of authentic evaluation, make brain breaks. It works. It works a lot. Sometimes I don't know who makes the schedules in all your schools and your institutions, but sometimes you have 3 lessons back to back with the same group, and you want to kill each other. So yeah, brain breaks, take brain breaks, make them, I don't know, stand up, dance around, move around. There are a bunch of YouTube videos on break breaks that are so much fun. Try to overlap some activities. So, for example, if you're having a class that is heavy on writing, maybe try to come up with something that is more creative. Maybe break that barrier, or like break that that mode of just writing and writing. You can do a thinking routine, a think pair share. You can have a graphic organizer. Okay, in groups, let's complete this compare and contrast, or let's complete this Venn diagram, or I don't know, like try to overlap activities so it's not so monotonous, or just try to, for example, if you are an English teacher, try to, okay, let's work on writing, but then we are going to do a speaking, or we are going to do a conversation, or we are going to create a comic strip on the same topic. Maybe you can stay on the same topic, but try to find different outlets. Students nowadays are very, very creative. So I always strive for artsy, maybe do an infographic, a comic, a poster, a drawing. And that also says a lot. A drawing says a lot, for example.
All right, Michael, thank you for your patience. Your hand is tired from.
Yeah, your hand is tired.
No, I was just curious. I wanted to know, well, first of all, thank you for all the information that we received today.
You're very
I
welcome.
wanted to ask, what's your opinion about the use of AI, like in the process of evaluation? You were talking about saving time, making lives better, right? Some teachers like me talking about the attention span, it's shorter as well. So what's your opinion about the AI?
I must say that I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted with it. Sometimes I really want to be, be really modern and up to date with the students. But, at the same time, we have schools banning the use of cell
Mhm.
phones because we have seen how bad it is for students. They don't produce, they are not able to write, they are not able to communicate because, everything is a text or an emoji or a sticker. You can have complete conversations with stickers. You know that is one of my hobbies. So, yeah, our students are into that mode right now. They are not producing, and AI is also like handicapping our students, like it's chopping everything. So I would say something that is very, very important: have clear policies about the use of AI. I don't know, your school, your institution has clear policies about AI? I think that's the most important thing. Does your school or institution have a clear policy about the use of electronics as it is? And then, AI, and not only for students but for teachers, because I have seen practices or worksheets, and you can totally see that they are made from chat gpt. Like, you can pick up on the cues, like the little emojis and stuff. You can totally see when something has been done with AI.
Yeah.
You can totally see it. So it's not only about students using AI, it's how much teachers should use it. I use ChatGPT. I like to use ChatGPT. I use it. Sometimes I use it to help me improve my wording on this, or how can I, how can I say this very ugly email that I need to send someone, but say it professionally and politely, and it really helps. It really helps. But I think when it comes to students, the first input has to come from them. If you want to improve something, or if you want a second version of something, maybe you can ask ChatGPT how would it change it or how it would improve it. But I always tell my students, please, I want to see what are your thoughts on it. In my classes, I don't allow the use of electronics. Personally, I don't. um, Only for very specific tasks. Maybe we are playing a Kahoot, or we are doing a Padlet, or maybe we're just doing a quiz online. Um, but with I allowed them. For example, I remember that I made a project last year, and they had to write a magazine as if they were tour guides. So they were given some destinations, and they had to create with AI the pictures of themselves in that destination. So they had to come to school dressed up, if they had to go to the Antarctica, and they had to come with this big uh, vests and everything, and they had to with AI make themselves in that. But things like that, like pictures, things that they could not do, things that they could actually not do. Like, you cannot go to the Antarctica and take a picture of yourself. Okay, do it like that. But if it's for writing an essay, or I think students are capable, and we should not be also enablers of, yes, use AI and just become lazy. I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answered your question. I know it's very vague,
Yes.
but I don't even have an opinion on it. I'm struggling with that as well as everybody is, I think.
Exactly. Yes.
I
We're
think
all
we
there.
have mixed opinions for sure.
Mhm.
For
Well,
sure.
what if we do this? I mean, we can still stay for another couple minutes in case there's a few more people that have something to say, but I'd like to say something myself. I'm going to share my screen really quickly here, and I hope that's visible now. All right, so let's give some feedback to Silvia in the form of a big thank you. All right, so really appreciate you spending your time with us this afternoon and for all this that you have prepared for us. So if you got your cameras on, why don't you give Silvia a big thumbs up or use the emojis or say something
Thank
nice there in the
you.
chat. I really appreciate the time that you spent putting this together and sharing these ideas with us. So thank you so much. The
Thank you